Welcome to Belief Busters Podcast, where we change the world one belief at a time. I'm your host, Reverend Cherie Taylor Jones, and I'm really glad that you could join us on the journey today. Joining me today is Reverend Dr. Martha Creek. She has been a mentor to me that has become friendship and colleagues, and I'm just so excited to have you on this show. It's a joy and a pleasure and a privilege. So hear all of that, know all of that, and I'm just so grateful for your presence in my life and my personal journey. And I love watching you be excited in what you do as well. So let me tell you a little bit about Martha. Her sincere mission is to serve, and it's evident in how she joins others in all aspects of their humanity as a peaceful presence, no matter the circumstances. And I can tell you, I have witnessed that, my friends. She has a clear understanding that each of us is fully equipped and exists in an infinite possibility field. Martha is inspired and motivated to offer practices and insights that motivate and promote balance, autonomy, mindfulness, and a solid foundation for living. And Martha is no stranger to challenging situations. She facilitates churches and organizations in the midst of conflict and change, individuals in emotional, financial, physical, and spiritual distress, and extraordinary people in struggles with day-to-day challenges looking for another way. Martha is dedicated to serving individuals in realizing their full potential. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you so much. It's very humbling to hear that, and I can report and would love your readers to know that I claim that also, that there's nothing that I heard, as humbling as it is and as wholehearted as my response to it is, like I would be delighted to know that about another person or to lift them up in the way that you've lifted me up here, honey. And it's absolutely true what you say. I can absolutely see each and every part of that. And it's delightful that you have experienced and witnessed, and it's beautiful and inspiring to be witnessed in it. So God bless whoever's listening, that they also reflect in the way that you have and that we are here to see how we can find that within ourselves. Each and every one of you, all the words you read about me is also true of many, many of these folks that will be listening to this empowerment, this series that you're doing.
Yeah,
So
that's one of the gifts that I love about you in who you are is what you see in others. And that's just a huge gift for so many of us, just to be witnessed as the divine light that we truly are. So thank you.
my pleasure.
The reason that I invited Martha to be a guest, not just because I love her, but the other reason is that I wanted her to really take us on a journey about what's going on with our bodies as they age, to look at the myths that we buy into and shifting those erroneous beliefs that no longer serve us. So my first question to Martha is, what were some of the beliefs that you were told would happen to your body as you got older? What's the buy-in there?
Yeah, it's a great question. And as I've been reflecting on that a bit, because I wasn't even aware of having a body for so many years. And the beliefs I had about it is that our body and the family I was born and raised in and through all generations of it were very heavy. If you look at a picture of a family reunion, I also have a belief that fat is healthy and that heavy is healthy. And that was the response that our family gave when they saw a chubby baby or a fatter baby, was be like,
Yes.
look how healthy they are.
Yes.
Look how healthy they are. So I've looked at that over the years, and I've questioned it, of course, and I see the consequences of that. Of buying into that or believing that. And also what happens in the family when you're not normal, when you are more conscious about what you weigh or start to eat less fried food or what's served at the table, and that, and the rolled eyes or even the criticisms that can come with that, like, oh brother, you've been out of the country now, you've been on a plane once, you think you're too big for your all these things you're going to eat. What do you mean you don't want it? You want it, but you don't want it fried. Like, what's wrong with you? So plenty of opportunities there to look at the body. I also reflected just in this minute or two that I've been thinking about this, is that it's like, don't bet on the body. The body is the loser. The body is going to die. It's going to go in a ground one day or in an urn somewhere. So you better be planning. And that was my own belief, actually. Like, I didn't relate to death as much as other people do. I have a very vivid recall at 3 years old with my granddaddy dying, who I defined love by the way that I was with that maternal grandfather of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And he died when I was 3. And I remember being at his funeral and in my dad's arms. And my thought was, they think he died. They think he's dead. And I didn't have an experience of him dying. I still felt close to him. It's like, even as a little kid, I thought death can't take him from me. So I've not really ever had much fear around death or what's going to happen with the body. That other people seem to. Yeah. So, we've all got our kind of plights and crosses to bear and things like that, but that's not been one of them for me, which is grace indeed, because with this body that I have and this assignment of the body I have, it would have been pure torture to have a lot of vanity or a lot of hang up about that. I wouldn't have been able to do what I do. It would have prevented me from playing sports and being active, and it didn't stop me. Other people would say, can you run? As heavy as I was, can you run? Do you know you're going to have to run laps? Do you understand you have to do suicide drills in basketball? And it's like, I do, and I've had this body since birth. So it still does quite a bit, even though it looks like it's too heavy to do quite a bit. So I didn't have a lot to undo that other people do about the body. And I also could look at some of the consequences in the family and see scientifically that there's some cause for this, DNA wise, cultural wise, environmental wise, and just math. If you take in 3,000 calories and burn out 1,000, then to be an accumulation of that. So I had a little cognition and a little ability to do some math over time. Although if most people looking at this body, particularly in comparison to like the normal standards of the body, would think, no, that girl can't do math. She doesn't know anything about a calorie. So I've thought about it over the years. What if I actually hadn't have been mindful about calories along the way? Like, just what could have happened? So I'm grateful for this body. I'm also grateful that I don't believe it's mine and that I take some responsibility for it, but I do not take full responsibility for what happens with it, what it does, how it unfolds, what it contracts, what happens with it. I'm going to be as sensible as I can, and I will not take responsibility fully for this body or the life of this body, because I don't have that power.
Well, that's interesting. So if you think that you're not fully responsible for your body, then what or who is?
Well, whatever created it, and that's up to the listener, I think, to decide that whatever birthed us, whatever brought us into creation, life itself, universe, God, whatever creator, that ultimately is going to be what's God's business or life's business or the unfolding of this. So it's a shared responsibility that I'm not going to touch a hot stove because it burns. So it's hurtful and it's damaging to the body. And like, I don't get to pick, in my experience, I don't get to pick what goes on with the body. Like, I didn't pick this nose. I didn't pick what happens here with this chin area, what's all that about. There's things I didn't pick, and there's things that I've worked to prevent that wasn't preventable. And I witness people literally on a daily basis at war with their body and what it won't do, what it is doing, what it should do, I want it to do, what it better not do, what I'm afraid it'll do. And it's far too torturous for me to live in that world. So I assume some responsibility. And, there's a prayer of Martin Luther that's coming to mind from the 1500s
Okay.
that said, I will work not to contaminate myself, and I'm going to work not to be a contaminant to other people. And I'm going to serve where I'm called, and I'm going to do what I can here. And I surrender all responsibility for my own life. And when my life is done, and when this body is done, then I'll know that I did what I was assigned here for, that I am complete in what I came here into this life to be. And the same is true for other bodies also.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm like, preach it, sister. Yes. um, so were you given any constructs or beliefs about what happens to your body as it ages at all?
There was not much concern about what happened with the body with aging other than expect the worst. So it's like my mother had a saying like, whoever called these the golden years hadn't lived them. So it's like you get old and die, and you get old and the body starts to constrict and shut down. And that's also factual, and I remember hearing a talk by Eckhart Tolle, like, if you think this body's not going to constrict
Yeah.
and go out, like put an apple on a table, get you a fresh, new, ripe, plump apple and set it up on your table and watch what happens to that apple in about 7 days. And that was so profound to me. And it's like, that's also what happens to the body.
Yes.
It'll have its own life cycle, and it'll have its own wrinkling process, and it'll have its brown spots here and there, and it'll eventually constrict off, rot off, disintegrate, and return down to a seed, which is where it came from,
Right.
the seed itself. So we had some notion that, live all you're going to, and one day the body is going to constrict and die. There was also not a lot of fear in my family about
Nice.
that. And I didn't have some of the same messages that other, particularly women, got about that it's got to go a certain way for you to have value, or
Mm-hmm.
for you to be empowered or something like that, of which I am extremely, extremely grateful for.
What were some of the people that you've worked with? What were some of their beliefs around how the body should behave?
Well, primarily that something can be prevented. And there's billions of dollars spent on preventative medicine and preventative measures around the body and aging and disease processes. So it's an extremely, extremely bitter, bitter pill when someone that hasn't eaten a bite of fat in their life, that's exercised every day, has a heart disease.
Yep.
And when there wasn't heart disease in the family, for example. So things like that. And that then if I keep moving, keep exercising, keep doing these things, that I'm not going to have illness.
Right.
Or if I meditate daily, I'm not going to have high blood pressure. And
Right.
then the blood pressure gets high, and then some kind of fake positivity about it. Like, oh, I'll just ohm my blood pressure down. And it's like, no, you're already ohming and your blood pressure. You may
Yes.
want to try something different, and it comes down to then this, are you willing to take the medicine? Because one of those prayers in that Martin Luther prayer is, I will administer medicine as a servant leader. I will administer medicine. I'll also take it. And I'm not promoting it. Everybody's here on their own accord. We're here under our own authority, or the authority of our mind or
Mm.
heart. So I have nothing to promote here, other than I know for me that I've watched, and that was your question, honey, what I've watched with people believing that something is going to turn out X, Y, or Z way. And then
Right.
they follow the formula for that.
Right.
And then the very, very painful grief and loss and despair and shock and trauma when their formula didn't produce what they were counting on it to produce.
Yep.
And like, I had a diagnosis of breast cancer 12 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't in denial over it. I simply didn't believe it was mine. And they even referred to my breast. And I'm like, they're not my breast. They're not my breast.
Okay.
So, and this is the current lay of the land. And I didn't have breast cancer in the family. I never had been pregnant. I've never taken hormones. I've never had some of the things that were the cause of
Right.
that. And then if I don't catch it, then I slide off into what am I holding in my thoughts and
Oh,
where
yeah.
too close to me. And I'm not denying any of that. I don't know. I mean, that's the
Hmm.
mystery of it. And my primary spiritual practice is to accept the mystery of it, which I would also wholly recommend regarding aging to and the body's lifespan and the body's life cycle, to accept the mystery of it. So do what you can and do what's sensible and surrender, because it's one day we won't get to pick.
Right. Thank you. Yeah. So it doesn't sound like you had a lot to transform, like from the myths around the body and aging to who you are today. Is that true, or have you had to transform your beliefs?
There's been some, but I started so young, and that I remember if you look at my first grade picture, I was evidently president of the class or something. I'm some officer in the class in first grade. So I was 5 or 6 years old,
Right.
and I'm bigger than my first grade teacher.
Dang. Yep.
I'm literally taller and bigger than my first grade teacher. Now, albeit she was small, but I mean, I've always had some reference for this size. So it wasn't like I just became this size overnight, so
Right.
this size has been with me all along. I did, however, buy into things like makeup, wearing makeup,
Mm-hmm.
like what makeup would get me, and then what hair. And I had this long, luscious, dark hair,
Mm-hmm.
vibrant, healthy, shiny hair. And then I started coloring it. And then after a few years of that, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, what is that all about? So I just stopped it just to see what I thought that was getting me, what I thought that dark hair was going to get me, that gray
Right.
hair would get me or something. I stopped wearing makeup at the exact same time, and jewelry. And I was a jewelry,
Okay.
something to some profane word that you would use to describe dressers full of jewelry.
Okay.
And then, of course, you know how it is. The more you have of it, the more you get, because
Yes.
then people love having you to have it too. So I stopped some of that. And part of that was around body imaging and looking at that I didn't want my peace or my power or my value hinged on what color my hair was, or how young I looked, or what what I'd done with my face in the way of
Mm-hmm.
makeup. And I have nothing against makeup, just like I have nothing else against it. It's like I believe we're on a free life. So wear makeup, enjoy it, wear jewelry, color your doggone hair, like do as you please. And I can't live a transformed life if I am afraid to lose my hair, or to have gray hair, or to not wear makeup, or to be seen without makeup.
Right.
I cannot live a well-being. That is not a well-being for my heart. And that's not a well-being for my soul and spirit, to put that kind of contingency on the body and the outer part of the body, the appearance of the body's appearance.
I hear you. So, what do you believe today about a woman and her body, your body aging?
Well, that it's natural, that you can't prevent what you're afraid of, that there's certain things that'll work, that you'll get responses from, and then the very thing that you're using and getting a response from, somewhere along the way you're not going to get the same response. So just because a certain time period, or just because it worked in certain situations, doesn't mean that it's going to work across the board, or till the end of our time, or to the grave. I believe that there is more, and I want to believe, and I'm an eternal optimist, as you know. As much
Yeah.
as people say, "Oh no, girl, you're a realist. You're a realist." I accept that. I am that, but I'm also eternally optimistic that we are learning something as a result of this, and that we do not have to let our well-being, our peace of mind, or peace of heart be so tied up in age, or aging, or what the body does through its natural processes of aging, and that I'm going to have a better time of it. And I believe others are, if we accept the natural progression of that, and and not to spend as much time and energy trying to control what cannot be controlled.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I get that. So what I'm hearing is that you're accepting all that is, all that occurs with your body, without the label of this is bad or this isn't working well anymore.
there's very poignant times in my life where I've had real awakenings about this. And I think maybe that gets to your question about what transformation I've had about this. So, for example, Byron Katie speaks about going to visit somebody who was so upset that her one leg was swollen and just out of proportion, the size of a basketball.
Mm-hmm.
And Katie asked the patient, "What's the problem?" And she
Mm-hmm.
said, "What's the problem?" And she slung the cover back and said, "Look at this leg. That's the problem." And Katie said, "Oh, you believe that leg should be the size of that leg.
Mm-hmm.
So now I've made that leg the problem." It's
Yes.
like the problem is my believing that something like this is not going to happen to the leg, or that swelling, that I'm immune from swelling, or that I'm immune from broken bones, or that I'm immune from a cancer diagnosis. And it's like, no, no. So young kids, babies, middle-aged teenagers, like there's nobody alive here without a diagnosis of some sort. And whoever you're listening, if you don't have yours yet, like it's waiting for you. So my encouragement then is to get some peace about that and some acceptance about that, that there's times of illness and times of wellness. And there's
Right.
times of it's flowing, and then there's times of it's constricted. And then there'll be demonstrations of its constriction. There'll be symptoms and patterns of that. And I believe, and there's evidence that the body is working to balance itself, to sort it out. We're not telling it to breathe, and we're not telling blood to circulate and
Right.
cells to oxygenate themselves and all that. So I can't see or how anybody could deny that the body's got its own systems and it's got its own intelligences and things like that that keep it going. And then one of our neighbor friends back home, there on the border of Kentucky and Tennessee, kept going to her doctor about a swollen knee. And she is very, very thin, this woman. She would say she didn't weigh 15 pounds soaking wet. And he kept saying, "It's your age. It's your age. It's the age of your knee. It's you getting old. It's old age." And after about 5 or 6 times to that doctor, she said, "Stop saying that. Stop saying it's my age. That leg is the same age as that leg." So I don't want to hear that. So I think we've all fallen under some kind of spell about after you're a certain age. And I hear it now, even when somebody will say, "Well, that's because I'm 60. Well, I'm in my 60s now." So it's like we're still under some kind of spell that when something starts to naturally occur, that we plop some kind of age, our notions about age or our beliefs about age into the equation. And
Yes.
part of it is to make sense out of it,
Yes.
or to be able to just cope with it in certain things. But it's absolutely, it's not true.
Yeah.
And it's not absolutely true. So
Yeah.
it's a factor, it's a variable, I believe, but there's no absolute truth to it, because somebody's not doing so well at 40 and somebody else is living to be 104. And I've
Yep.
seen people big, and my daddy would say, whenever I die, at whatever age I die, they're going to say, "Can't smoking killed him." So he would kind of laugh, like I could live to be 100 and they'll say smoking killed him. He's like, "No, he was 100. That's what killed him." Like that was his life cycle. And the same thing is true, even like with this breast cancer. I'm quoted as saying that, like I had that occurrence of breast cancer. It's been 12 years. And if it happens to be breast cancer or a recurrence of breast cancer in my life, that's not mine either. My life is not mine either. If it reoccurs, then that'll be in the headlines. She lost her battle with breast cancer. It's like
Right.
she never had a battle with breast cancer.
Yes. Yes.
But that's a part of the disease, this plopping disease labels on there. And then um, factoring in age as a dominant cause of something without ever questioning, is that true? Is
Right.
this really, is what I'm dealing with, can I absolutely know that it's age related?
Right. So for women who are at the point in life where they're maybe struggling a little bit with getting older and what their body is doing, what suggestions do you have for them?
Stop it.
Could you say that again?
Stop it. Stop your struggle. Throw in the towel. There's just so much that could be said about it. I understand. I'm not immune from this either. I don't use mirrors much, and you can tell that by looking at me, and it's fine. But it's like, if at least if you're going to look in the mirror, look at what is looking at you. See what is seeing you through those eyes. So instead of counting the wrinkles and measuring them with your measuring tape and how deep they are and how long they are and how many necks we have and those things, it's like the focus has got to be somewhere else if for you to ever have any peace of mind, which
Mm.
so then measuring the body and the constriction of the body, the decay of the body, the loss of its range of motion, the loss of agility, the loss of metabolism, and not to mention gravity work. So those perky breasts we depended on, in our 20s won't remain perky without some surgery or 10. So it's like then it's doing your best to accept the natural processes of the body, gravity,
Mhm.
aging, and it's absolutely a thief of joy to measure your power or your value or your worth based on the shape or the size or color or condition even of the body, and then change what you can. Have a big time with it, color it, paint it, nip it, snip it, stripe it, mohawk it, work it out, diet it, eat it, and to know that it's not, that you're okay. I'm okay. And that you're okay with whatever body you have. And it's inexpressible. My desire for people to know that, and the power that comes from just even having a glimpse of it, that
Yes.
my okayness doesn't hinge on the body's aspects.
Yes. That's powerful. And part of what you talk about is this level of acceptance of what is. And what one of the practices that I've started to do probably, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 years ago was just thanking my body. Thanking my body for showing up, thanking my body for taking me on a walk. If I hear or feel a twinge, I'll be like, oh, all right, so you need some rest. That's what you're saying to me. So I'll take some time now to rest you, but thank you. I really appreciate that. And so what that did for me is it took me out of the struggle and the battle.
Absolutely. It also puts when you've heard it, most people listening will have heard something like what you focus on grows, or where
Hmm.
you put your attention, energy flows. So that to express gratitude to the body is unheard of for most of us. So God bless you for doing it. I absolutely practice it, and it still takes work to do it because,
Yes.
as I say, we're often not even aware we have a body until it won't bend, or till
Right.
there's a pain in the knee or the neck is stiff, and then it's like, damn you, damn you, damn you, neck.
Yes.
Like, my God, it's holding something that weighs more than two bowling balls up all the time with very little support, very little rest, very little time for renewal. So it's like, whoa, back down on my knees to thank the neck and
Yes.
how well it is doing in the big scheme of things, and how well the knees are doing in the big scheme of things when they've not been cared for, stretched or iced or hotted or anything else until there starts to get some itis in them.
Mm.
So I would love that you spoke that and that you introduced that here, that just to include a speck of gratitude, which is really what I was referring to and inferring with, if you're going to look in the mirror, to also see how well it's doing
Mm.
instead of pointing out its flaws and pointing out what's wrong with it, and putting so much focus on that. So if you're going to nitpick yourself to death, if you're going to nitpick the body to death, then it is going to be death. And
Yes.
to include some gratitude or acknowledgement or some appreciation for just how well it's doing in the big scheme of things, with very little support from many of us.
Yep. True that. Thank you. So, Martha, we've got a lot that we've worked through today, and maybe people want to like be in touch with you, maybe know a little bit more about you. How do they do that?
Well, marthacreek.com is the website, and I'd love you to be in contact with me. I'm absolutely going to encourage you to question your beliefs, and this podcast is designed for that, and this ministry here are both of our ministries actually for that, to really look at what we believe and what we're convicted in and what's another potential for me. So how can I be with aging differently? Not how can I stop aging? How can I
Right.
be with aging differently? So there's hundreds and hundreds of podcasts over there and free videos, and there people can just use them and sign up on there's a way to connect with me via the newsletter, or to do private personal sessions with me if people want that, or these other events that I do, classes and virtual retreats and in-person retreats, and all the detail of it there is at marthacreek.com.
MarthaCreek.com. Thank you. We've had such a great time. I'm so appreciative of your wisdom and sharing with us. And I'm hoping you, as a listener, really allow yourself to hear these new ways of opening up to the truth and wisdom and love and light that you are, divine humanity. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us on this exploration of belief systems. I hope this gives you permission to change your beliefs and subsequently the world. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast and leave a review wherever you listen. You can reach me at preachitsister.com, where you'll find more resources on this subject. You can book me for a private coaching session to assess your own beliefs. You could even become a guest on this podcast. Or, if you want more info on my book, Turning Your Why into Why Not, you can find it there as well. See you on the flip side.